Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me in another video. So today we're diving into quite literally a style that's been following me everywhere. It's a style of handbag I cannot escape, and honestly, I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon, and I think the best way to describe it is aquatic. There's something abstractly underwater about these designs, rounded bodies, trailing pieces, movements that feel fluid, and the word that keeps coming to mind is the octopus. Maybe even jellyfish, but the kind of silhouette I'm talking about is a soft, rounded form with legs. And honestly, these octopus bags might just be some of the chicest designs out there right now. They're sculptural, they're tactile, they can be very architectural or fluid, yet they still pull references from vintage evening bags. To me, it's like this perfect fusion of something that is like abstract and organic. And today I wanted to talk about some of the brands that I think are leaning into this aesthetic in very literal ways, or in just ways that I think kind of have this fluid, rounded shape with these trailing ends. So let's start off with the most literal interpretation, Lemaire's Octopus Filt bag. This is probably the style that I think really connected everything for me. It's casual, it has that exact octopus like form, this oval pod like pouch, but then it has this knotted tail that trailed like tentacles. And what makes it I think really cool, it's a collaboration, it's co-designed with Filt, it's one of France's oldest manufacturers known for shopping nets, and you have this like beautiful net exterior, but then also this removable silk pouch on the inside. It has leather strap details that make it feel quite elevated. And yeah, it's completely Lemaire, very functional, sculptural, but it stands apart from I think some of their more usual silhouettes. I really love how Lemaire really plays with these like fun shapes, be it like the croissant, turns them into like functional handbags. For me personally, I know if I were to like walk past a door handle, it would probably like the net would probably get caught. That's just a me thing, but honestly, I think it looks really cool. I saw a lady carrying this the other day. Next is Le Sundial, and it's a smaller brand that I think deserves more attention. They're working within that kind of same fluid language. It's more like abstract. I wouldn't say it's quite a literal octopus bag. Looking at this bag, the use of like the rounded tactile shape that like softly gathers and drapes. To me, this is more of a very refined, elegant approach to this. This is something you could wear as a really lovely evening bag. I think this brand has gained a lot of traction for their jewelry, but this is quite a stunning bag, and they also have other accessories as well. Then we have Sophie Buhai's, also known for her very sculptural jewelry, but she makes these bags with this kind of, again, that same sort of like rounded, soft, oval-like shape, kind of like soft bulbs of material that feel elongated. And then there are these jewelry bits. Again, it's not quite like a literal octopus, but again, it feels like it has this like look of fluidity and about the form. And I think it's very interesting to see these designers that are like jewelry designers that are very like form focused enter in this world and give their perspective. These are such unique pieces. And with this teardrop pouch, you're getting this sterling silver charm, these black onyx beads. It just feels a little bit more elevated than I think honestly some luxury brands and their hardware and their use of materials. Next, I want to talk about Studio Emmanuel Pantanella. This is I think quite an artistic take on this trend. These clutches literally look like aquatic creatures, fish forms, very oceanic silhouettes, very wearable sculptures. They feel like these deep sea organisms brought to the surface, reimagined as evening bags. It feels quite experimental, but also really elegant. It seems like only the chicest people have these clutches. And when I think about this like style that we're seeing in 2025 and into 2026, talk more about vintage bags, but again, this type of shape, these types of like oval clutches with like the tassels, it's something you would see in vintage bags, but I think one brand you can find this quite often on the pre-love market. Of course, these are very expensive, and I'm talking about Chanel. This brand has definitely made bags in this shape in the past, these like clutches with these like tassels at the end. Even for their most recent collection, Chanel introduced this quilted, this metallic gold with this quilting, and it's an egg clutch, and then it has this tassel at the end. I actually personally really like this egg shape. This is probably going to be a fortune, so I'm just mentioning it here. I don't think you necessarily need to go up to like Chanel pricing to get the look, but you can also consider going vintage as well. Next, I want to talk about Chloe. So it's not really really, I would say, an octopus bag, but spiritually, I think it's part of this style of bags. They have the Chateau Treasures bag, and it's more of a heart shape instead of an oval. But then these dangling charms, echo tassels, fringes, there is this kind of like tentacle effect depending on how you look at it. And of course, I think it still feels quite boho, which is what Chloe does so well, but I think it sort of also connects to this aquatic slash ornamental category. Another bag that I just wanted to include, I wouldn't really say it's quite like this, but you know, when we go to like the final section of bags, like it kind of all ties together. But Valentino has the Nelcott bag. It's not spherical, but I think it still fits into this aesthetic. Again, it's more rectangular, and it's got the dramatic descending fringes to give it that movement, like strands or tentacles that sway as you walk. It's ornamental, it's theatrical, and I think very in line with the style. Another bag I'm just gonna loosely throw in this kind of style is the Isabel Marant, the Huna tasseled bag. Similar in vein, long tassels on the sides, feels a lot more like 70s, reminds me of vintage YSL bags, but it has, again, that kind of like carefree energy. Like, it's interesting how this style to me can feel quite like very elegant, very formal. Then it can also have this kind of like free-spirited attitude of the 70s or boho. But again, these tassels, the way the tassels are on this bag put it in this kind of like octopus adjacent world. In sort of a different direction, if you want to go for something very glamorous, if you look up Art Deco clutches with tassels, these are just such stunning pieces. I think they really capture this kind of flapper aesthetic, these like silk patches with these like bejeweled bodies, absolutely stunning. And then these like trailing tassels. You can go to like a variety of like secondhand places, but these like Art Deco clutches with these tassels, I just had to mention, definitely captures that kind of like flapper energy. And finally, I also wanted to mention these indigenous and Métis octopus bags. So a bit of a different style from a lot of the designer pieces we've been talking about, but the name octopus bag was literally used to describe these styles that actually derive from Anishinaabe traditions with these kind of like 8 legs. But the octopus bags were actually originally meant to be what were described as fire bags because they carried flint, tinder, tobacco, ammunition, these types of items needed for travel or survival. These bags were often made by Métis women, but they were actually carried by their husbands, which is an interesting early example of men wearing what we now categorize as a bag. But yeah, that's my deep dive, pun intended, into these types of octopus bags, these tassel bags, or these bags that just have, I think, quite a fluid look about them, this sort of underwater energy. And if I think about, you know, in a different kind of vein or a different kind of way, if I think about at McQueen, we've seen the revival of the Manta bag. Most recently, or a few years ago, the Bottega Veneta, the sardine bag. I think this kind of like aquatic energy in bags, taking inspiration from these like aquatic shapes, and whether in very literal ways or more abstract ways, turning them into handbags, I find so fascinating. Let me know which one is your favorite, or if you've been seeing other designers playing with this aquatic silhouette. We'd love to hear your thoughts in general. But yes, that's my video for today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.